Okay, so last episode we covered the cockpit of the motorcycle as well as the clutch and the throttle, and we did some slow moving off. Today what we're going to cover is changing gear and moving around corners slowly. So just while the engine's off, let's have a quick recap of what we covered last time. So clutch is like a dimmer switch, not a light switch, in relation to light bulbs, so it's not on off, it's gradual and it has a biting point. Throttle is the exact same. You only need a little bit of throttle to get what you want done. It's all in the clutch. But go and watch last week's episode. It's pinned up in the top corner now. And your gear shifter down here, one down, 5 up, and your rear brake over here. So feel free to go rewatch that video. That'll catch you up to where we are. But without delay, let's just get straight into it. Okay, so what we'll do first is we're going to discuss the theory of actually upshifting and downshifting before we go and do it for real. So that way you guys understand the theory and then actually doing it yourself. So it's very similar to moving off, actually, just a slight few tweaks. So last episode we balanced the biting point and the throttle to make ourselves go forward, but now what we want to do is, I'm in gear 1 right now, so let's say I'm moving forward and I want to accelerate. I've got the throttle open. What I'm going to do is I'm going to close the throttle, pull in the clutch, and then with my foot I'm going to click up into gear 2. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find that biting point again, and I can slowly release off. And that's how you have a smooth gear change, like how the really professional riders do it. Okay, so with downshifting, it's very similar, just backwards. Well, I wouldn't say backwards. So what we want to do is we want to let off the throttle, pull in the clutch, and with our left foot, we then want to click down. And then you'll notice when you downshift and let the clutch back out and apply the throttle, you're going to notice there's a bit of a... They call that engine braking. So motorcycles have 3 brakes. You've got your front brake, your rear brake, and your engine brake. So every time you downshift and you let the clutch out, you're going to hear that. That's the bike essentially slowing itself down to that gear. But what we're going to do now is we're actually going to move off, and we're going to do the upshift, we're going to do the downshift, we're going to have a look at using engine braking, and then what we'll do next is we'll actually look into cornering a little bit, just so we can get slow control, because our next episode is going to be the figure of 8s, U-turns, all of the fancy slow control stuff you can do. But what's really important to know is when you're learning to ride a motorbike is it doesn't matter how fast you can go. Your skill on a motorbike will come from how slow you can go. And my second tip is it doesn't matter how far you can lean the bike, because what I'm going to show you in a minute is when I go and take these corners, instead of leaning into a corner, I'm going to lean the other way. I'm going to show you that you don't need to lean into corners. Okay, so turning on the key. So I can see my neutral light's not illuminated. Let's flick that neutral light up. Now it is like 32 degrees outside right now, so my bike is running hot at 100 degrees. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in the clutch and start the bike. It's always recommended you pull in the clutch when starting, although not every bike actually requires it. And I apologise that my revs sound a little bit bouncy today. I think I need to get my bike back in the garage. So the bike's actually cooling down now because the fans have been on, which is lovely. Okay, so like what we covered last time, let's make sure our side stands up. We're going to click down into first, and then you're going to put your foot on the rear brake, so that way it's going to hold still. And we're going to let the clutch out, and we're going to start moving off. There you go. Let's move off into the road. Now we're going to practice that again, so off the throttle and the clutch. So you notice I bounced the revs there, that's just my habit to pick it up. There you go. So look, I'm now in gear 2, I want to shift into 3, off the throttle, clutch and up. There you go, it's really nice and easy. So being here, I'm just practicing my slow control. So just to enforce what we covered a little bit there, so I had a very bad downshift at first where I took too long and I had to bounce the throttle up. The more you actually do these upshifts and downshifts, the smoother they're going to get. You need to go out and practice this. Just watching this video alone will not improve your gear shifting, but I can give you some tips to get there. So we saw an example of a bad upshift where I took too long, just pulling off here. Saw that I had to blip the throttle to keep my revs up, which isn't an issue. But what we'll do is I'm going to move off again, but you can hear the fans kicking on. So I'm actually going to start up, click down into first again. Always do them shoulder checks when moving off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift straight up in second, off the clutch, off the throttle onto the clutch. And then if I downshift here to 1, see that little jolt? And so that's what happens when you drop the clutch when you downshift. So we've done a little bit of upshifting, a little bit of downshifting. What we're actually going to do now is we're going to go out on the road. So using gears to actually move the bike, I am currently in gear 1, approaching the junction. And then we're going to move off just like our start. You don't want too much here, it's all in the clutch here. That's where my power's coming from, you see as I jolt the clutch. So once I get to the point I want to upshift, let's click up. So remember, off the throttle, pull in the clutch and drag your foot upwards. Once it's happened, make that connection happen again. Remember, it's always in the clutch. Coming up to this roundabout, I'm going to want to downshift into gear 1 for this purpose. So let's indicate and downshift. There you go. I'm just going to hold that clutch in. I don't want that full engine brake. I don't want to let right off. And I also don't want the full power of gear 1 right now, so I can just tease that clutch just a little bit there if I want to, but you don't have to. So on this roundabout, instead of talking about gears, what we're going to talk about is moving the bike round a corner safely. Roundabout's always the best places that I found to practice this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click down into gear 1. That gives me the most amount of torque. And just to demonstrate, I'm going to lean away. So the bike is facing inwards, I'm actually leant outwards right now. And you can see we're still making a more than tight enough turn and have maneuverability there. So the key with actually, there you go, upshift again. The key with moving a bike round a corner or into a car park space is always looking where you want to go. If you're not looking where you want the bike to go, it's going to go somewhere else. So when you're gear shifting, what you need to do is practice that pattern of throttle off, clutch in, upshift, make the connection again. Or if you're downshifting, throttle off, clutch in, make the connection again. You need to practice that, because the last thing you want to be doing on a motorbike is looking down, going, oh, is the clutch pulled in? Because you take your eyes off the road and you're going to go somewhere you don't want to go. A lot of bikes have gear indicators. I prefer not to have one because it gives me something to kind of feel with the bike. I don't know what this bike, what gear it is in right now, and I don't need to know a number. All I need to know is, how does the bike feel? Does the bike feel too low? Then I'm going to downshift. Does the bike's power feel too high? Let's upshift. And eventually you'll hit gear 1, which is a nightmare. But let's head down this side road here quick. So shift into 1 again, make sure I'm happy with my speed, and then I'm going to look around the corner. I'm going to follow a path with my eyes, and then I'm going to come off. So it's not about leaning into a corner, it's not about dragging your rear brake to maintain control, it's about just looking where you want to go. So what we've covered so far is we've got moving off down from last episode. This episode we can now upshift and downshift gears, and we kind of understand what gear we should be in and when. So moving off, we want gear 1. After that we want gear 2, and then depending on how the bike feels, how it sounds, you want to go up and down. But it's something you're going to learn with your bike, because each bike is different. And then we've done some cornering as well. So with cornering, we always want to look where we're going, get that invisible map in your head of, oh, I need to be heading for here. And practicing that is going to really lead us nicely into next episode, because next episode is when we're doing the U-turns, as I said. And you will not be able to do a U-turn if you cannot keep your eyes off the bike. If you're looking down at the bike, you are doing something wrong. So let's actually keep moving, because it's very hot and I need the wind in my helmet, otherwise I might choke. It's coming up to this roundabout, I'm in gear 1, nothing coming. So now I'm going to create that invisible line with my eyes, and I'm going to follow it round and pretend it's there. I'm staring at where the line would be. I am not even looking down at the bike. So learning what your bike wants and knowing what gear you're in without looking at the gear indicator is what you really need to learn to master cornering. When I was on my CBT, like when was that, 7 years ago, I wish I knew the stuff I knew now, but it's all come from experience. So I'm sitting happy at 6,000, just below 6,000, maybe 5,000. If I wanted to be more fuel efficient, I could short shift, so that means shifting before required. So if I shift up again, I can shift up again and again, and now I'm in gear 6, I'm doing 4,000 RPM, and what that's going to do is that is actually going to increase my fuel efficiency. Wonderful. But then it means you have to downshift loads at a time. So like, I've just gone from gear 6 to gear 3, and then I've gone from gear 3 to gear 1. So don't be afraid to skip gears. It's very much like a car in that sense too. There you go, good example of downshifting to come to a stop, so I can use my engine braking as a brake and stop. Now that we've got the real basics of biking down, we can now move off, we can change gear, we can upshift, downshift, we can take a corner by using our mental map of a line and our focus points. So just make sure that you're never looking down at the bike. Over time you'll start to learn what speed is what by just the feel of the bike, as well as the gears and the RPM. But next week is when we're really going to get granular, and we're going to start using our rear brakes and slow control. We're going to start using the engine more. So when you're doing slow movements, you want what's called a busy engine, and all that really means is keeping the engine high on the revs. So revs like this is going to help me with slow control more than my standard revs. We're really going to knock out the clutch and the rear brake properly next episode. It's going to be a lot more skill based there, but I look forward to it. If you are enjoying this new series where we're learning bit by bit how to ride a motorbike, please leave a like, please subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one next week. Bye.